right, we are going to move on to client safety. Our clients are going to be in several situations where it will be our job to keep them safe. In this section, we will review how to best handle various situations that will arise and how to be preventative in these scenarios. First, let's talk about elopement. No matter what setting you're in or the client you're with, elopement is always a possibility. Be proactive whenever you can. Know the warning sign of your client's elopement. This is going to differ from client to client, so it's going to be important that you learn the different warning signs per the client that you're with. Some warning signs might be that they might give a running start to let you know that they're about to elope. Some clients like to look towards the doors right before they elope, and then that's their warning sign. Sometimes they might do a certain movement, and that means they're about to elope. It's really going to be dependent on the client and what they do to show a precursor that they're going to elope. Ensure that your client has the prerequisites for outings and the safety skills needed to go on an outing. If you feel like there's a certain skill that your client needs before you feel safe taking them on an outing because you feel like they're going to elope from you, then let your program manager know. We always appreciate people advocating for themselves in those situations because we want you to feel safe and feel like you can keep your client safe. Anytime you're in a new setting, or even if it's a familiar setting, take a look around as soon as you get there and know the possible exits that your client might take if they have eloped in the past. Even if they haven't eloped in the past, it's not going to hurt to do those types of things. And be familiar with your client's elopement plan if they tend to elope. This is going to be extremely important because you need to know what to do. Do you need to chase after them? Do you need to block the exits? Like, what is the safest plan when they elope from you? Some tips for elopement. If a client elopes from you, more than likely you're gonna have to run after them. So always be prepared if that's a possibility for your client. We can't let our clients get too far away from you, so you always need to follow them if they do elope. If you're on an outing, try and be preventative by holding hands, unless you're given permission by your PM otherwise. If parents state this is okay, you really should be getting PM permission as well for this. Sometimes parents think that their kid won't elope, but in the past you've seen that they have eloped from you, or a PM knows that they tend to elope with technicians over parents, things like that. It's going to be important that you make sure you run that by your program manager. Always err on the side of cautions on outings. Even if your client has eloped in the past, it's always a possibility in a novel setting. If you're on a playground or a setting where they might elope, keep an eye on your client at all times. Do not engage in other activities at this time. Some other good tips for elopement is, like I said before, be preventative. Some strategies that I've used in the past is turning the chair towards me so that if they were to get up and elope, they have to go past me and it's a lot easier for me to block. Block the exits whenever possible. Have them farthest away from the door so they have to go past you to get out of the room. Whatever it takes in order to kind of be preventative in those situations. Now we're going to watch a video about elopement.
Autistic boy who disappeared this morning has been found dead in a swimming pool.
An autistic girl drowning during a party.
Holding out hope that little John Burton Jr. had just been hiding,
where her body was found just a couple hours ago.
An autistic boy wanders away from home and dies.
Each week we update our missing persons list. We update any casualties. And this week we did have a little boy who was killed by a train, 12 years old.
I just tried to go along the shore and I went deep. I thought maybe I had her at one point.
And then there are the stories where our children beat the odds.
I'll cry at a football game. So if you keep asking questions like that, I'll tear up here. There's a lot of emotion in this.
There you see Nadia right there as she's being carried out. What a wonderful and happy ending to this.
At NAA, we do tend to focus more on the severe side of autism.
I know, you're very frustrated.
Our autism is seizures, head banging, insomnia, crippling bowel disease, debilitating fear, overwhelming sensory dysfunction, pica, and self-injury. It defines human beings, young and old, who are severely impacted, and the families who live in constant prevention and survival mode. The National Autism Association is a parent-run organization. This issue hits home for us. My son has wandered from multiple school settings. Our president at NAA, Wendy Fournier, her daughter is an active wanderer. We know how hard it is to keep our kids safe. There's a huge lack of resources. It's why NAA has created safety initiatives like the Big Red Safety Box, our Found program, the AWARE collaboration, and autismsafety.org. Autism parents are strong, we're very dedicated.
Good Scooby-Doo. Good job. Okay.
What?
That means. This means something. Get out. A little bit more. Come on. Look at the top part. Come on. This is the hot spot. All right.
There's so little resources for these families. And what do you do when you live next to a pond and your child is constantly trying to get to the pond? We tell first responders to search water first. A lot of times our kids will not respond to verbal commands. They won't respond to their name. They won't respond to stop. So you have to just get in there and get them.
Stay there, Ryan, stay there.
You look at Ryan's story, you look at the video, you see a happy ending. You also have to look at that video and imagine if that person wasn't there with Ryan. Listen to Ryan's cries and know there were so many children who have died this way without even the ability to cry out for help. We have to learn from those children, honor their stories, make sure that it doesn't happen to other children. These deaths are preventable.
So as you can see from that video, elopement is going to be a huge deal in the kids we work with. So make sure that if you feel like your kid needs additional support, additional tips, we need to work on keeping them safe by keeping them in the house, any sort of strategies they need to help prevent elopement, always reach out. Now we're going to talk about toy safety. When working with toys, consider the functioning level of your client when they are engaged with various toys. If they tend to put toys in their mouth, they will need to be supervised at all times when playing with toys. Check for choking hazards with new toys that are presented, and take into consideration other ways a child could get hurt with a toy based off of their functioning level, such as their ability to climb on and off objects, wanting to pick up an object that is too heavy, not having the fine motor strength to grab certain parts of a toy. Anything along those lines you're going to want to consider whenever they get brand new toys. Next, we're going to talk about burns. It's important that whenever possible, we are preventative when dealing with any sort of object, materials, or environment that could lead to a child burning themselves. In this section, we will review some tips on how to do this, the types of burns, and how to treat a burn if it does happen. So in order to be preventative, anytime your client is around a material that could cause them to become burned, they should be closely monitored and your eyes should not be taken off of the client. If there are candles lit around the house, matches, a fireplace is lit, anything along those lines, evaluate the knowledge your client has about these materials. If they do not have the awareness to not engage in these materials, request for them to be moved or go to a different part of the house. If for some reason the fireplace is lit at the house and you don't feel safe or you don't feel comfortable, just go to a different part. Go to the basement, go outside, go to their bedroom, wherever else you're allowed to play, so that you don't have to feel unsafe in that situation. If your client is working on shower and bathing skills, check in prior to beginning this program their knowledge and capability of determining when the water becomes hot. A client could easily become burned because they don't have that awareness, or they don't know how to turn the faucet on and off to stop it so that it's not really, really hot water. When cooking, always check in to see where your client is at with their cooking skills. Evaluate their environmental awareness during this time. If they're not aware that they're near hot things like a hot stove or a hot burner, then it's probably not a good idea for them to be cooking. You would need to be able to teach them that skill before they can be around those materials. Always use the back burners when able. Don't allow them to use a microwave unless this is a skill that they're actively working on. If they are working on this, teach them how to evaluate if something is too hot to grab and talk about it before they were ever to grab something from their microwave. Also, make sure that you allow still for cooling off time so that they don't accidentally grab something that is too hot. Teach them when they should wait for an item and how to prevent themselves from getting hurt with anything revolving a microwave or a toaster or anything like that. Anything that could be hot where they could easily burn themselves. There are going to be 3 types of burns that you could come across if a client does get burned. A first-degree burn is going to be considered mild compared to other burns. They result in pain and reddening of the epidermis, the outer layer of the skin. Second-degree burns is going to be a partial thickness burn. It's going to affect the epidermis and the dermis, which is going to be the next layer of skin that's a little lower. It will still cause pain, redness, swelling, and blistering. So if you start to see blistering, then that's already moved to a second-degree burn. A third-degree burn is going to be a full thickness burn that goes through the dermis and affects deeper tissues. They result in white or blackened charred skin that may be numb. Here's a picture that breaks down each type of burn. As you can see, it gets more and more severe as you get on the list, and a third-degree burn will result in a trip to the ER. You will not be able to treat that one at home. Here is a video that reviews some of the burn things that I just covered more in depth.
Burns are skin injuries caused by heat, chemicals, electricity, or radiation. Your doctor will recommend treatment based on the size of your burn and the layers of skin the burn affects. Your skin has 3 main layers: the epidermis, the dermis, and the hypodermis, or subcutaneous layer, containing fat, blood vessels, and nerves. Beneath the skin are tissues such as muscle, fascia, and bone. First-degree or superficial burns affect only your epidermis. The burn site appears red and dry with no blisters and is mildly painful. Second-degree or partial thickness burns involve your epidermis and portions of your upper dermis and lower dermis. The burn site is red and moist and may be blistered, swollen, and very painful. Third-degree or full-thickness burns extend through your dermis and into the hypodermis. The burn site appears patchy in color, ranging from white to brown, with a dry, leathery texture. Because the burn is so deep, it causes little or no pain. Fourth-degree burns involve the destruction of all layers of your skin, sometimes extending into the underlying muscle or bone. These burns are brown, dry, charred, and almost always painless. You can treat your first-degree burn by soaking it in cool water for a few minutes. To soothe and protect the tissue, apply an antibiotic ointment and cover with a clean, dry bandage. You can take acetaminophen or ibuprofen for pain. Care for a second-degree burn by soaking in cool water for several minutes. Apply an antibiotic ointment to prevent infection and cover with a clean, dry, non-stick bandage. Change your bandage every day and make sure your hands are clean. Acetaminophen or ibuprofen may help with pain and swelling. If you have a third or fourth degree burn, go immediately to an emergency department. If you can, elevate the burned body part higher than your heart. You will also need to seek medical attention if your burn is larger than 3 inches in diameter, or if it is located on your face, hands, feet, groin, buttocks, or over a major joint.
Treatment. As this video mentioned, the treatment of burns is going to depend on the severity of your client's injury. Follow the steps below for treatment. First, you're going to need to evaluate if the burn is a first, second, or third degree burn. If it's a first or second degree burn, run the burn under cool, not cold, water, or use a cold compress to cool off the burn. Once the burn is cooled off, you may apply a loose bandage onto the burn. Make sure to apply antibiotic cream if the client is allowed. You really would want to make sure that this is okay before applying it in case the client has an allergic reaction or is just not allowed to have antibiotic cream. If the client reports they are in pain, discuss with parents additional treatments to be given, such as a pain reliever. In order to give them a pain reliever, though, you must have written permission to do so. For third degree burn, treat this as a medical emergency. Refer to your client's specific crisis plan on what to do, but medical treatment from a professional should be sought out immediately. Poisoning/medications. In this section, we will find some safety tips in order to prevent poisonings from happening. 9 out of 10 poisonings occur at home. Half of the 2.4 million calls to poison control involve children ages 5 and under. In 67% of emergency room visits for medicine poisoning, the medicine was left within reach of a child, such as in a purse, on a counter or dresser, or on the ground. Never administer medication or vitamins to a client or allow a client to take medication or vitamins while in your care without written permission of a parent. This applies to prescription medication as well as to over-the-counter drugs. So just because your client is complaining about having a headache, or your client is saying that their stomach hurts or anything like that, you're not allowed to administer medication unless you have written permission. It cannot just be verbal permission from a parent. It has to be written down. So if they text you and say that's okay, if they write it down on a piece of paper and you say that's okay, and you're able to take a picture of it and present it elsewhere and scan it into Box or give it to Beth, like that's going to be a really important step that you take. Don't leave any poisonous products unattended while in use. So if you need to get out bleach because you're working on cleaning toilets with a client, because that's a skill they're working on, or you're working on with any other thing that might be poisonous, make sure it's not unattended while it's in use, and that it's also out of their reach so that they don't accidentally get into it or another kid in the house gets into it, anything like that. If you're working on getting a client to take medicine, don't compare it to candy to encourage kids to take it. We don't ever want kids to think that their medicine is candy, because then they're going to be more likely to consume lots of it, and then they could end up with a poisoning. Make sure that all medications, vitamins, batteries, and makeup are up and away and out of sight of the child, including your own. If they are not, ask the parents to do this. If the parents are not home, do it yourself. Make sure to inform parents when they arrive home about this decision and why it occurred. Store your personal belongings out of the reach of your client. Even if you have to give another dosage to a client, make sure to put it back away and out of reach. Take into consideration where your client might be able to get into medicines. Kids can get into medication if it's in the purse, if it's in a bathroom, if it's in a nightstand. If it's within reach, a client could get it. So if you're at a house where you feel like clients tend to get into things like that or have access to them, then you might want to mention that maybe it should be put away a little higher. If you're uncomfortable having that conversation with a parent, then bring it to your program manager. Place purses and bags that contain medicine in high places. So if you have anything in your bag that might lead to a poisoning or a medication that's in your bag, then it needs to be put away. Poison control. The number for poison control is listed right here. Please take a moment to put that into your phone. If your client has been poisoned by any sort of product, call poison control. If they have collapsed or are not breathing, call 911 right away. Do not treat the child for poison until directed by a professional. Do not make a child vomit unless directed by a professional. Here is a video about poisoning.
Each year, more than 60,000 children are treated in emergency rooms because they got into medications while unsupervised. Keep your children safe today. Store medicines up and away and out of sight. Even if you are tempted to keep medicine handy, put it away every single time. Read the label, follow the instructions, and only use the dosing device packaged with the medication. Have the Poison Control Center number at hand. Safe storage, safe dosing, safe kids. For more tips, visit safekids.org.
And here is another video.
Look it!
This 4-year-old just opened a bottle of cough syrup.
I did it.
Potentially lethal. This boy just got into powerful painkillers.
Got it.
How'd they do that? All the bottles are sealed with child safety caps. That's scary for a lot of parents.
It should be scary because whatever's inside here could kill your child.
Kate Carr is with the watchdog group Safe Kids and says these caps may be part of a bigger problem. This new report shows a stunning 30% spike over the past decade in young kids accidentally poisoned by medication. 67,000 children rushed to hospital ERs for it in 2011 alone. I'm looking at these bottles, pink liquid, gummy candies. I mean, this is enticing to a child.
They think it's great. It's like candy. So they're going to swallow it and they're going to go after more.
And you're about to see just how fast it can happen. We invited this group of 4-year-olds to a play date. Then we bought several medications, from ibuprofen to acetaminophen, cough syrup to iron pills, and prescription antibiotics. We also bought toxic drain and floor cleaners. If swallowed by a child, all these products can be poisonous, even deadly. That's why they come with child-resistant safety caps. Before our test, we dumped everything out. We even cleaned and sanitized the bottles, so nothing was left behind. Back at the playdate, with their parents looking on, we get started. We want to see how quickly you can open these bottles. 1, 2, 3, go. Within 3 seconds. Watch. You got it that fast? Francesca pops the safety cap on ibuprofen. According to Safe Kids, the #1 drug kids get into. About a minute later, she opens another bottle of acetaminophen, #3 on the list. You opened that one too?
Yes.
Was that easy to open?
Yes.
The boys are doing it too. Mark here opens the cough syrup and those dangerous painkillers. Remember, this could be poison for a child. Yet there's Brayden opening bottles. No problem at all.
Easy.
In fact, every single child in our group opened at least 1 bottle. Olivia opened 2 within minutes. How do you open that?
I did all by myself.
Really fast.
I am really fast because I'm a big girl.
Her mom watched in horror.
I was frightened. You buy these items expecting them to be childproof, and my little 4-year-old sat there and opened it.
One after the other after the other.
Very easily.
What you may not know, under federal law, these caps don't have to be child-proof, just child-resistant. Are the regulations tight enough?
I think they are. We don't want to make it impossible to open something. What we want to make sure is that kids can't get to medicine.
She says it comes down to us as adults. We leave medication in our bags, on counters, as a reminder to take them, but that can also make them easily accessible to small kids. For Francesca's dad, our playdate was a wake-up call.
I gotta go home and check the house with all the medicines and the bottles and make sure they're put away, because seeing that they're that easily opened by a 4-year-old is very dangerous.
It was easy.
So as you can see, those are just 4-year-old children. If you work with kids that are much older, imagine how much more easy it would be to get into those bottles.